There's that issue to deal with. I want to start our conversation with the party because there have been conversations surrounding what happens next in the party after the demise of the sixth Republican president, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, who had returned to active politics and obviously was your preferred candidate for the upcoming 2026 elections. He was the president of the Patriotic Front until his death. You recently revealed that the PF will soon have a party convention. Kindly shed more light on that.
Well, I think from that perspective, it's a clear answer. Patriotic Front is governed by our own statutes, the PF Constitution, and it tabulates clearly processes through which the office of president, for example, and indeed other officers are chosen. It is through a democratic process dictated by the Constitution, and to that effect, we will not debate away from that approach. We are dictated to by our own Constitution, and the Constitution dictates that when there is a vacancy, and in this case, now that the vacancy has also reconciled with practically a few months before the scheduled general conference that is required to be held every 5 years is scheduled. So everything basically, is falling in place. We're going to go to a general conference, and it's only through the general conference that a leader will emerge, and then we'll also have a flag bearer for 2026.
Mr. Nakachinda, there's so many things that are happening with the PF. There's another faction in the PF led by Honorable Chawinga. When of the PF sort these things out? And also, just to be clear, before the late former president returned to active politics, there was an issue to do with some candidates that were interested in vying for the position of president of the PF. They paid 200,000 kwacha, to be considered to lead the party at a convention that did not happen at that time. Please shed more light. What happens with those candidates? Are they still being considered if the convention is held after we put to rest the sixth Republican president? And how far are we as far as resolving these issues with this faction being led by Mr. Robert Chawinga, Honorable Robert Chawinga?
Well, first of all, let me maybe start with the only question.
Yes.
The issues to do with factions is neither here nor there. First of all, to even consider Chawinga as a faction leader is being mischievous. We had a situation where Honorable Mausampa held what he called a conference, which basically was not in line with the provision of the Constitution. And it was disturbed, it was basically dead on delivery from the onset. And to that effect, outside the involvement and interference of the state in relation to that sham conference, all these matters will not even be a matter to even talk about at this particular stage. The good thing is that Honorable Mausampa himself realized that what he did was not correct, it was wrong, it was injurious not only to the party but also to democracy. And we've been able to get to a place where we reconciled and even went before court and deposited our intention to have this matter resolved by way of consent. Of course, there was an attempt by Chawinga to try and join the matter, but first of all, we're all intelligent enough, including the listeners. Chawinga was not even part of that conference. He was just at some point some appointee of Mausampa by way of him being appointed as leader of opposition and so on. And when themselves differed, he, with the support of the state and the president, he pronounced himself president. And I don't think we're in a society where due process and all those things are required.
When you say support of the president and state, what do you mean? How does that come in? How is he being supported?
It's in public domain. Chavinga has been trotting around the country with the President Nakachinda, even given a podium to pronounce himself as PF president. At some point they were in Kasama, where the president was even telling him, on camera, that so just proceed and do what you are doing, even when he knew and he knows that what Chavinga is doing is illegal, it is criminal, and it should not be tolerated. And of course, we warned him that when you are dealing with society misfits, you have to prepare yourself to also face the consequences. Today, he's facing the consequence of the fact that he has been implicated in some criminal activities that Chavinga has self-confessed. He was assigned to go undertake in South Africa, and you have heard some pronouncement he has made through a press briefing and so on. So, Mr. Nakachinda, through these shenanigans and the mingaratos he has been doing, all he has done is to smear himself with debt, if not West, and he's basically smelling the as they say on the street, the pungent of playing with the society misfits. So to even make Chavinga a subject by saying that he's a faction leader, Chavinga is a tool of a criminal enterprise of UPND, nothing else. The Zambian people know that there is no such thing as a faction. Nevertheless, we are magnanimous enough as Patriotic Front to say, let's all these matters be resolved. We would love that the court, pronounces itself, because this question has been raised, and we have even written letters to the Chief Justice to say, can you prioritize these issues, matters of Patriotic Front, being the main opposition in the interest of democracy? Answers have not yet come. The courts have not yet been moved. But we are also alive to the fact that, okay, if they cannot be resolved through the judicial process, we're going then to resolve this issue through a democratic process. So we want Chavinga and everybody else who claims to be PF to participate in the process of us going to the conference, so that let the members and the people of Zambia be the ones that will speak on the kind of leadership that should emerge and be in PF as the main opposition. So we are preparing going towards the conference, one, to also resolve this perception of factions, but also to be able to give the membership across the country an opportunity to have a say in who should be their leader.
What happens to those people that had paid those 200,000?
So they remember that when we lost elections, President Edgar Chagorungu went on sabbatical leave, and he opted that a process should be initiated towards choosing a leader that would take over from him. As we were considering all options and the opportunity we can raise funds and put certain things in place towards holding the conference, the call for him to come back to active politics was increasing by the day, by every month that passed and so on. And because we are a people-driven movement, this PF is not about the leaders. PF is about a movement of the people. Way from the time PF was founded by Mr. Michael Chukwu Lalet, through to the time that PF formed the government, has been a people's movement. So the pronouncement of the people are the ones basically that dictate the direction that the PF takes. That's how come the issue of going to a conference for us is a must, because the people must be able to dictate who their leader should be. And when the people pronounce themselves effectively around, former president coming to also participate within the collective, to be able to answer to some of the challenges that are emerged. One of them that I think blew the lead for him to say, I'm coming, I'll respond to what the people are asking, was basically the interference of the state in the affairs of Patriotic Front, allowing basically a coup d'etat protected by the state, police, released, the changing of office bearers done overnight. When the Registrar of Society registrar decided to follow the provision of the Constitution and said, no, we cannot change the list of office bearers in the fashion that the state is demanding, because that would be illegal. she was booted out. We all know about this. Ms. Mende lost her job on the basis of the fact that UPND, through state apparatus and cadres they had appointed in government, began to interfere with the leadership of Patriotic Front. That triggered the former president to see that the effort by the UPND in government to kill democracy and destroy opposition political parties were the level of determination was alarming, and therefore it needed concerted effort. So when he came on the scene, those of our colleagues who had expressed interest to be considered for leadership, they, of course, agreed and succumbed to the fact that the legitimate leader at the time, before the next conference, which was scheduled for 2026, was President Edgar Chaganu. So they held their horses, and by consensus, discussions were held within the party, and they said, no, for us, we paid just as an expression of interest, and therefore now that the president has come back, we're already behind him. At this particular stage that he has passed on, these are people who were brave enough to express their interest to lead the party. So we cannot just ignore. They have been known that they are desirous to lead the party. And obviously they will be part of those that will be given an opportunity to pursue their ambition or offer, if you like. But I can just state that it will not be restricted to those who had paid at the time. Because obviously over time some people may have also felt that maybe I have some, something I can offer to the party and to the nation. And the search for national leadership, I don't think it is one that we can just, exclusively restrict to just a few individuals. I think the Zambian people, looking at how the UPND have treated them, they are looking for a leadership that at arriving at that particular leader, due diligence has been undertaken. We will not allow a process that, for example, is driven by slogans, that is driven by corruption in terms of money, trying to posture and manipulate people. We are going to have a process that will also scrutinize the kind of leader that eventually will offer to Zambian people. So that when we get into government, and I'm using deliberate word, when we get into government, we shouldn't cry that we've shot ourselves in the foot. We should have done everything required, leaving no stone unturned, and make sure that the light.
What do you mean when you say all that, Mr. Nakachinda, as far as scrutinizing and making sure that the list of people that are interested are well looked into? And I ask this because last time the PF lost a president, there was some sort of confusion, there was chaos. Again, we were at a point where there was one faction that wanted this person to lead, there was another faction that wanted that other person to lead. How do you avoid a similar situation, seeing that now there's another looming convention with a lot of potentially a lot of interested parties here?
I don't know why you love the word factions. We may have to increase our vocabulary around these issues. When there is competition for leadership, obviously in a group, there will be people who clearly will say, my preferred candidate is this one. That's not a faction. It's a democratic right of every member of Patriotic Front at an appropriate time to be able to say, this is my choice. And when they decide to start campaigning for that particular person, you can't call it faction. And you can't call it confusion, unless you don't understand what democracy is.
Is it democratic to have two separate conventions and have a different decision decided, and then there was another one that had to take place that was stopped by the courts, and then for you to get to a final decision to have Edgar Lungu as president? That's what I'm referring to. So when you're saying I'm being very somewhat shallow with my vocabulary, with how I'm describing the events of the past.
My brother,
I think we need to
be
honest with each other. Are you paying attention
to the questions you're asking?
Yes.
You asked me a question about Mao Sampande, Chaving, and so on. I answered.
Yes.
Then you asked me a question to do with the process that was initiated just after the elections and people offered themselves for presidency, and that there seem to have been groupings of people saying this one should lead, another one should lead. Those are not factions. I think
you misunderstood what I was asking you. I asked you that question, and out of the backdrop, I referenced the time the other president died, who is Michael Sata.
Oh,
when Michael Sata died, that's where we are.
Right. Okay.
So I think that's where we have a misunderstanding here. Now that you understand my question, please go ahead and respond to it.
Even that in itself.
Yes.
Okay. They were, you may call them factions, but there were people who expressed a desire to lead the party at that particular point. They were robust. There were, all kinds of, happenings. But the major aspect, if you were to analyze, that came to the fore was the fact that there was a vice president who was not left to act as president. And then there was a debate within this government, the state apparatus, particularly the Office of Attorney General, who gave an opinion that the acting president at the time, who happened to have been Edgar Chagwanungu, who was Minister of Defense and Minister of Justice, needed to hand over the instruments of power. It is that component that ushered in now seemingly some power play. Okay, but when it came to issues of selection, the suspension of the then Secretary General Edgar Chagwanungu and some of those maneuvers are the ones that seem to have ushered in what seemed to have been confusion. But otherwise, in a democratic society and in a democratic institution, when there is a process towards electing a leader, you cannot stifle members at a particular time, especially when the conference date is announced and the date of campaign is announced and people are campaigning. You can't stifle members from expressing themselves that I prefer this one because I think they have these qualities that will help the party moving forward. So if we were to speak to those issues, there are many factors which may require a single program for us to discuss to benefit from that history, and I appreciate the fact that you asked, to benefit from that history so that some mistakes that were made during that time are not repeated moving forward. I can only assure you that privately, as a party, we have looked at all those factors. We have even looked at the issues to do with the happenings after the loss in 2021, and we have drawn lessons. And we are marching towards, this conference and towards 2026, wiser than we may have been before these things have happened.
Mr. Nakachinda, when are we possibly going to have this conference?
Well, I don't think it's in my place to be able to preempt decisions that have to be made by Central Committee. But I can only tell you that Central Committee met, and one of the things that we deliberated was the fact that we have a funeral. We haven't even put to rest our leader, and to that effect, in detail, the issues of the inevitable holding of the conference will be discussed, and I think parameters and everything will be put in place by Central Committee.
I want to get your comment on incidents that happened last week. We saw PF faction President Robert Chavinga, who threatened to deal with PF faction leader Given Lubinda, and the leaked audio, which has also gone viral. He issued some threats when he made that presser. What's your comment to that? What's your reaction to Mr. Chavinga's press conference and the threats he made to Honorable Lubinda and Sishua as well?
Well, I think it just confirms the criminality that Chavinga is involved in, supported, if not sponsored by, now by his own claim, the state and the president. The UPND, who have also been trying to, exonerate him and cleanse him and want to even turn what is obvious to suggest that this is an AI, orchestrated audio and all the nonsense that Zambian people have been subjected to. But this is basically a confirmation. The question I was expecting from you was to say, now it looks like this confirms the criminality that Chavinga is involved in, sponsored by the state and the UPND. Because he himself has put it on record. Nobody in UPND has disputed that. Everybody in the UPND from top to bottom, including State House, have disputed that that's not an original audio. It is the Zambian people who have analyzed, and with today's technological advancement, people have been able to also engage technological in terms of IT to be able to establish that that is an original audio. It should worry you and worry Zambians that the entire head of state would be mentioned to have participated in a process of wanting to bribe judges. You understand? To have a society misfit like this boy called Chavinga sent to South Africa. during such a very solemn moment where we are mourning a former head of state, there could be issues that are still to be resolved around the burial and all that. That's a separate issue. But to engage into criminal activities, including going to mobilize surrogates and so on to disparage the Lungu family and President Lungu in his death, it's an Zambian. It's unheard of. And then the president is parading himself here when stakeholders go to meet him that I haven't been moving because I'm mourning. What kind of mourning is this? Where, going by his own words, he says he's an elder of the church. I listened to an audio this morning where he was saying to the ones who were swearing in, I think one of them is an ambassador to Brazil, that we need to be genuine Christians who does correct things during the day and also correct things in the night. Not Christians who do certain things during the day and does evil things during the night. Mr. President, can you speak to us Zambians over your purported assigning Chabinga to South Africa to do the activities that have been reviewed in that audio? To a point where he was expressing that as a head of state, you are so desperate that you called him in the night 12 times.
I want to play an audio for you, Mr. Nakachinda, from State House, since you brought it up regarding State House and their stance. We heard from Mr. Clayson Hamasaka. Let me just play back an audio for you, his response to the audio, and I would like you to respond to it, since we're talking about the audio now.
Go ahead.
So this was Mr. Clayson Hamasaka's response to the audio and the allegations of Mr. Chabinga being called 12 times by the president. I'll just play back again because Mr. Nakachinda was wearing his headphones. What's your response to that?
My response is that this is pure playing to the gallery. He's saying that he can't talk to the the genuineness of the audio, but that whatever is said there, none happened. This is Hamasaka, and the phone calls were after midnight 02. Hamasaka was sleeping at his house. You understand what I'm saying? He can't speak authoritatively to matters that happened after midnight. He knocks off at a particular time. Our working hours in Zambia is 8 hours for those who are formerly employed. So from morning to 17, if he has been stretched, maybe he can go to 20, 21. After midnight, what we know in Zambia is that in Wakazizo, is after midnight. And you know when I use the word Wakazizo, after midnight is a superstition. You're expected to finish your business formally at a particular time. But the boy said, I was cold, I was even sleeping. I woke up maybe in the phone window tunda. Then about 12 missed calls were president. 30 missed calls were Friday, the DG. Just those allegations are too grave for us to start debating a guy who has been called on the phone and says, I can't confirm, and I can tell you that what he has alleged is not true. Okay? By now, Chabinga, if the UPND, the way we know them, and Misaka in the HLM, if they were not involved, Chabinga would have been in sales. Small boys have just said things which are not as grave as what Chabinga said over the president have been picked up and thrown in jail. Some of them have disappeared and we don't know where they are. For doing what? For saying things that are considered insults towards an elder person. Though the law does not define what you can say an insult and so on, because some of the things we say in Bemba, in Tonga, and so on, they may not really in our culture be an insult. You have heard the president himself, speak. At one time he was at a rally in Kasama. We condemned because we thought that, he's trying to get into a speaking a language whose culture he may not fully comprehend, and therefore he may make a mistake. We have people like Kapwepwe, this boy, Waimi, that everybody's talking about. Where is he? He is not only been arrested, but he has disappeared. For doing what? For saying things that people considered uncouth. But this man has implicated the president in criminality and is exonerated by a phone call between you and the Hamasaka. And all of us Zambia should take that story as something that should just pass by that statement. The president is being put at the center of the criminal activities of Chavinga, and he must answer for himself. Nobody can answer for him over a phone call between him and Chavinga. Unless Hamasaka says that when the president is making a phone call, they hold the phone together. He is this side listening to what the other one is saying and what he's saying. If that is the approach, yes. Meaning that Hamasaka, wakatuma phone wa president, wamagwira phone pamoja na eve. But the boy said, anantumina phone wa president. After that, wantumina nuzati, utumina na DG wa intelligence, Friday nyambi. And that's how that assignment was given. And then he further went to say, wananuza utitika kumane mairo. But later on they said, no, it cannot wait for tomorrow. You were looking for flights. And in the end, they checked on the manifest. They found that South African Airways, which was leaving early in the morning, had too many PF members. That's how he ended up in an Airlink. In the Airlink plane, when he went there, he says, Inari Sangaba, PF, Abengi, Katoto, Shanshan, and so on. And that whole has been confirmed. So, in this case, we have even passed the stage of whether the audio is genuine or not. We are at the stage of the fact that the president is at the center of this criminality. You understand? And we can't have the presidency involved in criminal acts. You understand what I'm saying? It's an abomination.
Speaking of criminal acts, Chivule MP, Honorable Mulenga Fube, has reported Mafinga MP, Honorable Robert Chavinga, to the police for threatening violence against Emmanuel Mwamba and historian Dr. Sishua. Do you think the police are going to summon Chavinga?
Before all these people came to report, that very day when the audio came out, because I've challenged the police, the IG and the other senior officers at Central Police, when they call me for all these stupid charges they give us called seditious practice. Last time I was being called to the police to exonerate myself over an audio, an interview I had in South Africa over our late president. And there were discussions between the state and the family, and the party was involved. And in the discussion, when we were trying to look at the possibilities of this process of burial, the family raised an issue of the fact that considering, undertaking a postmortem. And that was expressed. And then I'm being summoned at the police. So I asked them, I said, how come you have the audacity to call me for a conversation that I held on a TV station in South Africa, but you never arrest any UPND person when they actually commit direct offenses? For me, I'm in court, one of the cases, where I was arrested without anybody complaining. I was kept for 13 days. 2 days in Westwood, about 11 days at Lusaka Central Police. During that time, as it has been reviewed in court, that is when they went and fished out some surrogates of UPND to be listed as those who reported dates or days after being arrested. How come Chavinga, even when there has been 6-7 people who have reported, I can confirm, our MCC Kibombwe, with, of course, President Wright Musoma, went to Central Police, to the DCIO. The reception they received there was like a reception from a UPND cadre. You understand? From a UPND cadre. And further, letters were written. Yesterday, we had people, of course, now, because this has become a national matter, we got reports that in Central Province in Kabwe, there are people that reported Chavinga. But Chavinga is still boasting, telling everybody. He even orders the police, I'm going to undertake aggravated robbery against senior PF members because in his whatever mind they have planted an idea that there is money somewhere roaming within PF. And therefore I'm going to undertake an aggravated robbery. Police stay away. And the police are complicit to it. You understand? IG Musamba, we have already said from before, this man is tired and retired. He will not help, not only to ensure that the rule of law prevails, but because he's a UPND cadre, he will usher this country into chaos. We have warned Misaka in Ndayishimiye several times that let's not take advantage of the Zambian people and their desire and passion for peace. Other jurisdictional countries that have ended up in chaotic situations, they were also peaceful, but they were stretched because the moment the rule of law does not prevail and or is selectively applied, it renders those who feel oppressed to start thinking it's like, survival of the fittest. If all of us are equal before the law, when we go before court, you know that if I was unlawfully arrested by the police, at least I'll have justice before the court. That confidence from the opposition especially, and many Zambians, we don't have. When you go in a court, you even know that I've been brought now to the slaughter. This magistrate, we know him. Because we live in the same society. We live in the same society. We know each other. We live in the same neighborhood. With the judges, we live in the same neighborhoods with magistrate, and we know affiliations. The only thing that will make this country sane is that sacred institutions like the judiciary must be paged of any attempt to have in the state interfere with his operation.
I want us to
because that's the conscience of our society. If the conscience of our society is soiled by what now is happening in this country, how is it that we are going to have a situation where cases that involves leaders of PF are adjudicated upon with supersonic speed towards jail? But a PF matter that has to do with the institution, it has taken over 3 years without being attended to. What's going on? I mean, unless we're taken for a ride, all of us.
Mr. Nakachinda, still on the issue to do with the audio. The same audio has been submitted before the South African court by the Edgar Chagbalungu family lawyer. How do you think this will do to the diplomatic relations between Zambia and South Africa?
Well, I think the family took the matter before court because that is highly contemptuous. There are, allegations and proposals of wanting the judge presiding over the matter to be bribed and all those things. I think to protect the integrity of that process, the court needed to be made aware that the family is, perturbed by the fact that there could even be room for a judge to be bribed. There could even be somebody have the courage to say the judge needs to be bribed. If we give the money, they'll make a decision in our favor. Now, when it comes to diplomatic relations, Misaka in Ndayishimiye has failed in the region. We all can see, I think there's even been reports that he's making efforts to try and, clean up the diplomatic relationship with Zimbabwe. At some point, we had even reckless reports of foreign affairs minister going to Zimbabwe, carrying their own water, their own snacks, and all those things because they can't trust Zimbabwe. Blatant, scandalous, behavior that will not help in making the relationship better. With South Africa, Chabinga's audio, not only that, even the engagement over the funeral of President Edgar Chagbalungu. I think better public pronouncements and engagement would have been handled in such a way that even this impasse will not reach where it is. On the diplomatic front, Mr. Ika Ndayishimiye has, failed today we are being threatened by America in relation to our travel. There is a threat that Zambians will not be allowed, to have visas more than 3 months, and maybe even put a travel ban on Zambians. Where is it coming from? It's not only coming from issues of corruption. It's also coming from the fact that diplomatically our engagements may not be sound. Zambia has been a shining light from 1964.
You've given us 2 examples of relationships that might have been not handled well in the region, Zimbabwe, and now there's this issue to do with South Africa. Which other country would you cite besides these 2? Are you rating his failure to have a diplomatic relationship with our neighbors beyond that? And obviously with the Americans, we've seen the shift in what's going on with the Trump administration. There's so many countries that have been put on that list. Don't you think you're judging them harshly when it comes to the American issue?
First of all, we should not have even featured. Zambia, as you know, you have grown up in a country that has remained a shining light and respected globally in relation to our diplomatic engagement and also our championing of peace and so on. We were never a subject of having challenges with our neighbors or any other country. Remember that from the early years after independence, President Kaunda started championing a policy which now became a continental policy, the non-aligned movement, you remember? To make sure that we're friends with everybody. To have, for example, the foreign minister or international relations minister of South Africa sued by a government over a matter of the burial of President Edgar Chagwa. It's a diplomatic blunder. You understand? He was sent by President Cyril Ramaphosa to Zambia to engage the president. You know what happened? On assumption, the president wanted to play to the gallery. And he called media houses to State House, private and the public media houses. And when the message, which was supposed to be confidential, was being shared, we are told that it's private media and everybody was chased from State House. And they tried to now make as it were, play to the gallery by creating an impression that the government of South Africa had come to deliver a message that they don't want the body to be buried in South Africa. When the message was very clear, as government, we have no say on these matters. The final say has to come from the family because that's what the law provides in South Africa. Purely to encourage the government here in Zambia to say, you have to up your game in terms of your negotiations and engagement with the family or whoever is involved so that you can resolve these matters, because otherwise the law in South Africa is very clear. But they played to the gallery and said, no, the South African government has, through the minister, told us this is a position. It had to take the same minister to clarify. That's not the reason why I came. What I came to say is that the law in Zambia is like this. When President President HH is embarrassed, we are all embarrassed. You understand? You remember the Ukraine-Russia, saga. Everybody advised, don't go and take sides. We are non-aligned. Out of excitement to try and appease Biden. A matter that doesn't even concern you. It doesn't benefit you. It neither adds or subtracts anything from you. You are a small country here in SADC. You want to start becoming a champion over matters and their interests you don't even, fully comprehend. You go and say, I'm going to. He was advised even by those who were officers at the embassy in Washington at the time. Okay? That the route we should take is to take the route that traditional Zambia has taken. We're non-aligned when it comes to, because it will elevate us to a place where we can engage Ukraine, you can engage Russia, we can engage America, to reason with them around how to resolve this war situation. The moment you take a side, then you lose locus on how to resolve these issues. And that is unfortunately what, just the expose from Gonzalez, whitewashes Aimbe's pronouncements. But what is that, speaking to and affecting our diplomatic relations? There are certain things that we expect a government, when they come out, the government retreats, engaged into quiet diplomacy. They understand and comprehend the subject. By the time they are making a pronouncement, they are not making an emotional pronouncement, or they are not engaged in political rhetoric because they are preoccupied on how they are perceived by Zambians.
I understand your point. I understand your point. It's very valid. My question was are we not being hashed the fact that we're ignoring the policy shift in the USA as far as immigration is concerned, as far as relation is concerned, as far as them giving aid? They had this whole department Dodge created to make sure that they're spending their money and they're spending it where American people are benefiting. So that's what my question was derived from. Are we really being fair are we really being fair with ourselves by judging ourselves that harshly after knowing the fact that there's a policy shift in the USA? That's where my question was derived.
The UPND are being harsh against the Zambian people by creating these problems because of mishandling of our relationship, traditional as they have been for many years. They are being harsh against the Zambian people. Normally, we would not be having these challenges, whether it was during Michael Sata's, Edgar Chagalungu's time, Michael Sata's time. I remember one particular incident during Michael Sata. I think we have to also be honest about some of these things. George Bush came here as a former president, remember? And at the airport, President Sata said, Imwe, you are the ones who, who colonized us. Okay? It was like a joke. But because it was not expected to come from a head of state without having verified facts, because America never got involved in, colonialism and so on, it was an off statement as a joke. But as it were, Zambians, the international community and others felt that it was a misplaced statement. And from that point, President Sata retreated and said, oops, it was just, in jest. You understand? Misaka in the Ichirema was dancing, he criticized Mr. Sata. But that was the end of the story. Mr. Sata in opposition used to call Chinese investors. When he became president, he realized that what I was saying on the anti-as opposition can't be said now that I'm head of state. He called the very people he was calling investors and had meetings with them in the interest of the Zambia-China relation. You understand what I'm saying? That's how, the distinction is drawn between political rhetoric and the reality of office. After all, there is no school that teaches you how to be a president. You may be schooled in politics. You may be schooled in governance, having been minister, having been MP and all these portfolios. But everyone who ends up in that office called presidency must be humble enough, teachable enough to be able to be taught the etiquettes and the governance of a country at that level. You go there as a student. The attitude of Mr. Aka in the Ichirema is that in his mind he thought that what he was doing at his farm, he can just transfer and put it in the state house. That's how come we're having these shockwaves. Because as far as this is concerned, it's the alpha and omega.
I want to throw some numbers at you regarding what's going on now. We did get the FIC report released yesterday, Mr. Nakachinda. During the period under review, the Financial Intelligence Center detected suspected illicit financial flows worth $3.5 billion US. Now, this is according to the 10th Money Laundering and Terrorism Financing Trends report of 2024. What's your comment, and what are the comparisons with the FIC reports under your administration as PF?
I think under PF, you could properly term it as maybe illicit flows, because obviously society and government and so on may not be seamless. There will always be elements where challenges in relation to integrity may come. But under UPND, these illicit flows as reported not only now, 2023, the exponential increase, the rapid increase is totally abnormal, my brother. It's abnormal. This is not even about theft or corruption. This is economic sabotage. This is a confirmation that in 2021's election, we conducted a scandalous, decision of having political mafias end up in government. Because there's no way that the kind of money that is leaving this country would leave, whether it's in, as they say in West Africa and other places, in Ukobag, or whatever method, whether it's transfers, bank transfers and so on, that this kind of money, billions of kwachas, billions of dollars, would leave this country without the knowledge of the powers that be. It's impossible. It's impossible.
There's been a highlight in this report of 2024 where the private sector is mainly highlighted, and it seems that there's a lot of money now that's being shipped off to offshore accounts in this current trends report. What's your take on that? And obviously you've highlighted the issue to do with how easy it is to get money in and money out into the country. What would you suggest we do to make sure that we have a watertight, somewhat of a system that will help the country in the long run to help curb these illicit financial flows?
Okay, first of all, we have to accept that what is happening is basically state organized crime. You understand? Because it's not an innocent occurrence. Let's start from there. And it will help for us to start finding, solutions. When you look at the reports from 2023 to 4 months ago, because the report which you are referring to now is basically a report, yes, finalized and released, 6 months later. But remember, there's a period to which the figures have to be verified and all those things before you can then release an official, report. When you remove the time for the bureaucracy to be concluded, this is basically money, lost within 4 months. Now, we can stretch it to 2023. Up to now, the loss is to a tune of over 140 billion kwacha. 140 billion kwacha. Misaka Njaichilema has been running around talking about development going to the grassroots through CDF. Do you know how much they are boasting about? 30 million kwacha that they give per year to a constituency. The money which has been lost, which is over 140 billion, kwacha, if you divide it by 156 constituencies, it's giving you average around 800 to 900 million kwacha per constituency. Basically, a billion kwacha per constituency. So, if tuletuma 30 million kwacha bale pela, ni stock bata, fyaku tushinga pamenso. It's like wasendo omwana olingiro kutwala ku school no kumushitira sapato na ma uniform. Wampera ka sweet atikala kungana. You understand? When what guarantees the future of that child is you taking them to school and buying them uniforms. You get a point? Today, Zambia would have been far ahead in terms of development if this money was deployed to where it is required. So, Avena Zambia, now we have billions. Yako watinga to watch that divide, but in quarter 1 billion per constituency. And who is the beneficiary of this money? On top of these illicit losses, not peranama incentives, kuma mines, tax incentives, mineral royalty is now deductible. How many more billions are we losing through such incentives? And who is the beneficiary for such decisions to be made? Who lets the benefit in none? Because you can't sabotage Zambians without having to trace who could be benefiting at personal level. You understand? Abena Zambia, all they are seeking for FY is to enjoy their country and enjoy the wealth that God gave them. But we have a few people in government who have chosen to prioritize themselves and foreigners at the expense of citizens. Panotwikele, my brother. Abena Zambia, even their own personal efforts to do some business is sabotaged. Umunandi nangura brother one cousin wandule ukweteka barber shop. Teta pangolu pia, munandu wakutida, road shedding is eating them up in terms of their business and economic activities. And our understanding is that it's not that the country cannot produce enough power for the citizens, if they are prioritized, to be able to have power 24/7. It's because there are issues of export, prioritizing foreigners. So, echo barasenda mumu utekwa UPND, ama Zambians, ichinshi. What are they benefiting? What are we benefiting? Apart from now inculcating a poverty mentality to a point where to discuss money amongst Zambians is a crime.
Mr. Nakachinda, I want to throw one more question at you before we open the phone lines.
Yeah, but ngawachinde kakofe 2 minutes pantu chichile kalipechi. Umina Zambia inonshita, ngashita motoka, they are scrutinized to a point where it's like a crime to have a vehicle. A simple liability, a vehicle. For some people, a second hand. This boy, our musician that now people have succumbed to start celebrating, bought a second hand Land Cruiser. The state not even investigate what's the source of the income, your income. Even when you can see that the trend, the guy is doing something, he's summoned to the police. We have people who are in jail today, Bowman, Pakukulenganda, not Ifianda, Inganda. He doesn't deserve to build a house. Even when he was minister, he did some business. That is a crime.
Mr. Nakachinda, don't you think people have, the Zambian people that is, don't you think they have the right to question you, our leaders, on how you amassed your wealth? Don't you think they have a right to question if you are driving a very expensive car, or if you are living in a very luxurious house, you are a public servant, or you're a leader in the sense that you're a member of parliament? Don't you think ordinary citizens have the right to question that?
Nobody has ever said people should not be questioned. That's not what I'm saying.
So don't you think,
Lolela. You're asking on behalf of the Zambian people. We're not competing. The issue is about the due process. You can't see me wearing a suit and the first conclusion you have at Naiva. That's wrong. Okay? There must be a complaint of the fact that something has gone missing somewhere. You understand? That involves me. That would warrant you starting to investigate. I can't be declared guilty and now there's a process to try and declare me innocent. Imoba busy if you push a question. Ngamunesha kamoto kapanse. Aninkwata fejeras. Kumi kata. If I have means to influence the police and everybody. No kwambu kumwebu kwa ati number 2 ndororweni how you bought this car because it's a proceed of crime. Do you think that's justice? Imwenda na mashonso mchita spend. Do you owe all the monies, do you record and receipt them? If me as a friend, we have worked together, you have interviewed me several times. Nasa kwata I'm a bit lucky today, and therefore I'm a bit lucky today. Na kwata koka ngwe. Nasa ndafata we kwena my brother, he has been working hard for the country and so on. Maybe I buy him a car as a gift. Do you know that you can be arrested in this country? That mentality we must all condemn. This fake report and the trend report is telling you what real crime is. Not if it were over petty issues. Hakainde Hichilema himself, up to today, he has not declared his assets. But there has been an impression created over years that he's such a millionaire. Because he has declared during the time of him seeking his during the declaration for presidential whatever, you come up with a figure and pronounce that I am worth 23 billion kwacha. Nobody even verifies whether he owns that. We are waiting that if he's worth 100 billion as he says, can he be able now to substantiate through the declaration of these assets? Otherwise, the conclusion of some people that he basically is not declaring assets because what he was flashing around as his wealth, he could be accumulating today. That's what some of the people are alleging, that he could be trying to accumulate to reach the levels of his false declaration. That's what others are saying in bars. You understand? And for some of us, when we see these figures, how can 140 billion kwacha leave this country? And Misaka in the Hichilema who says, you know, you need to use your gray matter. He's such an intelligent man. Such monies are living from his economy, and he doesn't know. He's also surprised, just like me, when he reads through FIC report.
But don't you think he'll have his day to answer as well?
I'm asking the question.
Don't you think you have, because there are records at ECZ, he's submitted those records at ECZ, they're not making them public, and I know that...
are you his witness?
That's the process.
No,
that's not that I'm a witness. That's the process.
Which process are you talking about?
For you to be nominated as president, you need to declare your liabilities and assets to the Electoral Commission of Zambia.
Yeah.
That's the law. So he's declared it to them, right? For him to be on the ballot, that means he's done that. We have a record of that with the ECZ.
Okay.
Don't you think we should question the ECZ and the officers responsible why they are not telling us why or how much the president has, and that he should have his time to answer how these questions that you're putting forward today, how much he has, how much has he amassed? Don't you think there's already a record to that, the fact that he's finding himself on the ballot?
Listen, I am not going to argue with you. But as far as I'm concerned, the man has not declared assets.
It's not an argument here. I'm just putting forward questions to you,
but,
Mr. Nakachinda.
And to that effect...
And it's the words you're using. It's not an argument.
Because
I'm just asking you a
no,
question.
I'm just saying, because obviously you are inviting me to now tell you what the reality is. Mwangala Zaromis is a member of UPND whose interest is to protect the interests of Aka in the HLM. McDonald's Chipenzi is a member of UPND. Same applies to Neri Muti. Same applies to even the executive director. People have alleged that he was associated with the UPND. So you have a branch of UPND in ECZ, and you expect me to agree with you that it's a fair assumption that those people are being professional in not telling us what Aka in the HLM is worth. The ECZ of the past, whenever the declarations of all presidential candidates have been made, they made them public. That is where we saw that Michael Sata was declaring a gun and a Cressida, a house and a few other assets. Then we knew, oh, Kanshi Shkuruyu, if you are Kwatef. And then Misaka in the HLM would be told that in the affidavit he has signed is worthy. At some point it was 23 billion, then it moved to almost 40-something, 50 billion, and this time around we don't even know.
The law was changed, Mr. Nakachinda. You're well aware of that.
Okay.
You're well aware of that, Mr.
Okay,
Nakachinda.
even if the law you are saying changed, a man of integrity will not hide in the law. The questions have been asked by the Zambian people that want to know how much you are worth. Because if you chitika no bupupu bwafula bushana mewa president omo muri umu turangeni before tamarangira mu state house, how much were you worth? Now that you're in state house, how much are you worth? Because imewa kainde chile mamwalilanda tina salary tomakula poka. You understand? Meaning that from the time you went into state house up to today, the fact that you are not even getting a salary, your wealth must remain at the same level. So ngatawasa sangati hao waka in the HLM na bashitako na mines through proxies nefi ya sharof. Then tuwalambo kuipusho kwa tawe kanshe chobare fishida assets because ero barengira mu status watu wewe ati assets wako watani ngombe sha kupenda no bashinonshi kuturesanga wati ngombe bareshitisha chirabushiku and ngombe ama breeds te aliko yalia akale. So trefo kupisha pushe ngombe shisha isa chimbesho tulomfachira fuma kuma Botswana muleshi tanendera macheno shijia nangola kulishinda na pakati hapa. Emma questions to push, and we have a right to ask a president because he's the custodian of the wealth of this country, and the wealth of this country has disappeared to a tune of over 140 billion. Inenjishire kuno ku ntwanikane ku station kuisa kuma interviews na kaka mumoto kaka because if you na bikrefe 6 liters yesterday. Filetwali, when the economy was okay under PF, under MMD, where private citizens had the luxury of putting food tank. Shita. Even you ngana kuipusha. Wadibika nilisa wabikrepa food tank motoka mo.
I'm not here to answer questions.
Yeah, I'm just asking. Even in Munamu studio with these technical people ngana pusha. When did you last put food tank? Na motoka detu kabika food tank kusho kwa echa wako muyu PND. That's the situation we're in. It's hand to mouth. And going into 2026, I can tell you, the UPND, they don't have Nakachinda as an opposition leader. They don't have PF as the opposition, or Tonse as the opposition, or indeed put together all the collective political parties in the opposition as the opposition. The opposition for UPND is the Zambian people. Ebale umfobu kalifi turelanda. Ebale chula inonshita. Mumo market mwali batamfya. Mumo bus stop mwali batitikisha. Inonshita abale enda ku bale ya kuma yangu bale mwana kwa tilimbisa na organized arrangement for them to be able to make money with taxis. Now, whether you belong to Yango, you belong to all these facilities, including taxis who just nobody is making money. Actually, they are making more losses because the fuel prices are high. The prices are too low. Nobody has money. When you want to book a taxi, you have to negotiate. There is nobody who pays cash without negotiating. Shino nshitatungira mushoprite nga wae mkusenda kutuntu tunono wae kutiu kungo na kwa tilimbi kutu nalanda na basi kuipusha ba manager bushe kutu wachako negotiate mtengo wakula efi chishi na nomba negotiation na mushoprite.
Let's get the people involved now, Mr. Nakachinda. Those of you listening to us live on Kwitu FM 93.3 FM, those listening to us live on Canela FM on 97.7 FM in Lundazi and surrounding areas, those listening to us on Hot on 87.7 here in Lusaka surrounding areas, you can call us now on 0974-870-877 or 0950-955-877. Those lines get you through to the hot seat. Restrict yourself to asking one question so that we get as many questions as we can answered by the PF Secretary General, Mr. Raphael Nakachinda, joining us on the hot seat. 0974-870-877 or 0950-955-877. Those lines will get you through to the hot seat this morning. We'll remind you again, restrict yourself to asking one question so that we get as many questions as we can. Good morning.
Morning, P.C.
Morning to you. What's your name?
Lottie from Matero.
All right, Lottie, we have Mr. Nakachinda in studio.
Okay, Mr. Nakachinda, Mauka.
Takabu inakuru mnubani.
I just have got one question for you. Apart from talking about HH, what other agenda do you have for the Zambians going into 2026?
All right, thank you, Lottie. 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. I'll pick up two more calls, Mr. Nakachinda, then I'll allow you to respond to them. Call us now, 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. Those lines will get you through to the hot seat. Good morning.
Good morning, Daisy.
Morning to you. What's your name?
Yeah, Chimwene Mdonga.
Chimwene, we have Mr. Nakachinda in studio. Please go ahead.
Nakachinda, Muligwati.
Tribu inakuru mnubani.
Kwa mwangwa, kwa mwangwa, tiko turura, kwa mwangwa, mulima bani. Kwena kutopiki, Nakachinda. Sisi, kichetekera mulimwe. Wauze nikoni, tifuna opposition party 2026. Just because of government yaku ya kitegorora kuri economy. Ife mulutaka tikusabaipa. Kumunzi, bazasabaipa bwaji kuri mema yangu. just because of government yatu inataka katikati kwa kujimansura sisiaona. So wanataka wauze ma opposition member wangale pamozi. Woti kungale kapaturo raia chama tukizapa na jana just because of waeke tuwanyatina makukwela pampato. Ona niweze ni bonije sisi na napatanja just because kukwela pampato. Okay, mpeleze Nakachinda, but ikifuna koti ikakupata ile bodi wilizana ni opposition. Ama wewe wakifutisha wasili hapa just because of corruption. Okay, mpeleze kwino.
Skoma Mtonga. It's 0974-870-877. It's 0950-955-877. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Pizzy.
Morning to you. What's your name?
My name is Mishek. I am calling you from Kanyama within Lusaka.
All right, Mishek, we have Mr. Nakachinda in studio.
Nakachinda Mudara, Mwabuka Buti.
Gavoto mudara mwabuga.
Kaboto. Pizzy, me, it's not a question, but
Mishek,
are you getting me?
we can hear you now. You are breaking.
Yes. Okay, so I'm saying that with me, it's not a question, but it's a contribution in form of a concern. Mr. Nakachinda, in the first thing, if I was the president, by this time we are going to be caged. Because your mouth is very careless. You have the capacity to touch this country, to bring this country to a civil war. So you should thank Bali. Hakainde is a good man with a good heart. That even up today, you have got the chance to go to a radio station and keep on yapping careless statements.
I think I'll ask you to be civil as you address our guest this morning. You can retract the word yapping and just address him with the utmost respect he deserves, please.
Okay, I retracted that one.
Yeah, so please just be very civil, ask your question, put your point across.
Okay, my point is that you, the opposition, you have failed to tell Zambians what you are going to do. And now what we are hearing from you is just hate speech. Because you never expected that Hakainde Hichilema is going to be a president of this country. It is the hatred that you have. You have got nothing to offer to this country. And Mr. Sata's spirit is not resting for seeing you, Nakachinda, and giving Ruvinda. Because if I remind you, after Mr. Sata said that he had useless ministers, the first minister who was fired was given Ruvinda. And Ruvinda and Nakachinda, you are a let down. And you are a disgrace to even to the patriotic front. You have killed Mr. Sata's spirit and Mr. Sata's party. You are not supposed even to be given a chance to be leaders in this country.
I've given you enough time to get your question or point across. Mishek, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Nakachinda, please respond to this week.
I'll start with Mishek.
Yes.
The mere fact that he's crying, I'm doing my job perfect well. He can't start dictating to us what we should say over this failed government. And if they think they're going to intimidate us by threatening arrest and caging, our duty is to speak. And if he's speaking for the Zambian people who aren't, cowardly on the part of Hakainde Hichilema, and he decides to take us into prison, it is a price we are ready to pay. I have said here that if he resorts to even killing, he can cut me into 1,000 pieces. Each piece will still speak for the Zambian people, for justice, for the right thing to do. Mishek is out of place. He can't start wanting to take away my right of expression, freedom of expression, and association. He is saying we don't tell the people of Zambia what we want to do. The root cause of the problem we are facing, including the hunger I sense in his voice. And he thinks that by praising Hakainde Hichilema he may find something. It's too late. If he was to benefit, he should have benefited a long time ago. This frustration is not just about what I'm saying. He's also frustrated because even him as a UPND cadre, Roti from Matero, he has asked a very important question. And sometimes we seem not to be speaking about what we plan for the Zambian people. Because when we are called to a radio program like this, we don't dictate the questions that are asked to us, and we answer as they come. But since he has asked, first of all, in summary, outside speaking policy by policy and talking about our manifesto, what is the collective expectation of the Zambian people? I already indicated, Zambians are looking for a leadership that will prioritize them over foreigners. Zambians are looking for a leadership that will guarantee that the wealth of this country will benefit them. Zambians are not asking for too much. They're saying, just allow us to enjoy our country, to enjoy our God-given wealth. As you structure your governance systems and implement your policies, we should be at the center of it. That's how come Patriotic Front and its mantra is about the poor. It's a party for the poor, and even the packaging of our message from our first president to our second president, and even moving forward, it will be centered around the needs of the people. Why were we saying money in people's pocket? It's because the policies were going to be tilted towards making sure that the local person is empowered. How did we end up under Edgar Chagalungu with insisting that whatever contract is given on the basis of lack of capacity to a foreign company, 20% of whatever they are doing should be given to the local contractors with the aim of building capacity? You understand? Moving forward, I can tell you that what the people are going through under UPND, they will not experience when the opposition get into government. Because we will not permit that 140 billion is lost and within a few months, and then we are saying to the Zambian people, your development is coming by the 30 million we're giving every year per constituency. It's a fallacy. It's deceit. It's hypocrisy. So Mr. Loti, natumukwatire fingi parapene twashire ubu ichirubo twapangire fenga ba PF chali chirubo cha makadans abale moneka kwatirimbi bale angalina muma areas like muma stations, especially kuno Lusaka, and seemingly disturbed a few processes yaba council and so on. Outside the cadres, there's nothing else that those in new government or others will be able to criticize about Patriotic Front. Because in terms of infrastructure, our record is second to none. In terms of empowering Zambians, there was money during Patriotic Front in the hands of Zambians. Yes, when people are capacitated after a long time, not everybody remains sane. There are people who they have never handled money. So Ngabasa, deliberately, they also deserve to have money. But Basa Shkwata, Bamana Chakwati, Nanimonepo ka video, Nimaso Shina Moneka video, Manda Muchida Ambati, Nebon, Amanuele Safia, Ngendara Mashapua. Indara Mangasha isa, Amanuela Sela. Dawafia Kapuwa Kene. But it doesn't mean that because the person has confessed that when I have money, I lose it, that they don't deserve to have money. Every Zambian deserves to have a stake, to have a bite at the pie, regardless of whether when they bite they will remain so normal or not. But for as long as they're Zambians, they must enjoy themselves. So in PF, money was available. We saw some people who were misbehaving, maybe publicly and so on. It irritated some people. But it was a sign that money was available. And we are correcting some of those issues in relation to cadres. Manawakwitu.
Amtonga's calling for united opposition.
I am telling you that whether it is in Tonse and other opposition political parties, we are determined to make sure that unity is the hallmark of every effort we make. Redeeming the Zambian people in 2026 is not an option, is a must. Because, and will not play personal and partisan and, small, groupings' interests to, take over the interests of the majority. That's how come even when it comes to the process towards arriving at a leader in PF, is broader than just looking at an individual. Hence the word you heard from me, that we're going to have a process of scrutiny. Of course, we're not going to be reckless to a point of inviting the schemes as confirmed by Chavinga and the Mingarato as confessed by President Nakachinda Hichilema, that we are going to play Mingarato, Pasi Kumbari, Gwira Pamkos. We are sharp enough to make sure that when the option and the flag bearer is unveiled to the Zambian people, Zambians will say, now we are serious.
Okay. Mr. Nakachinda, let's squeeze in some more calls. It's 0974-870-877. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Kate.
Morning to you. What's your name? Hello, good morning. What's your name? All right, I can see that you're still connected, but we can't hear what you're saying. Please do try, call us back and reconnect. It's 0974-870-877. It's 0950-955-877. Good morning.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. You're through to the hot seat.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. You're through to the hot seat. We can hear you. What's your name?
Good morning.
Morning to you. What's your name? Ba Hussein, please ask your question.
We know Molishano. I'm quiet.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead. Hussein, I'll ask you to get your point. We've gotten your point. Hussein, thank you. We've gotten your point. Thank you very much for your call. Mr. Nakachinda, be given a chance to respond to you. Call us now is 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. We'd like to hear from you this morning. What's your question? Remember, just keep your questions brief so that we get as many as we can. Keep your questions brief, and then we'll put them forward to Mr. Nakachinda here in studio. 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Pete.
Morning to you. What's your name?
Yeah, Musaka, we know Musaka here. Mr. Nakachinda, good morning.
Morning.
Siam Musaka, please go ahead with your question.
I just wanted to correct him over the disclosure of the work of the president. You know, in 2021, as you rightly put it, the law changed. I was eagerly waiting to hear how well President Edgar Lungu was. Because the 2016 was 1 million target or somewhere there. No, 21 million, 21 million jumped for 1.521. So in 2021, I was hoping to hear Edgar Lungu's wealth. How was it? Was it now from 1.5 to jump to 21 million? I think in 2021, I was expecting to be over 100 million or so. But because there was jumping a lot in terms of well, that's it. I was very shocked to hear no presidential candidate the wealth was declared publicly. Due to, I've just noticed that it was because the law was changed. Mr. Nakachinda, were you happy with my question? The way Mr. Lungu, may he so rest in peace, the way he was growing in terms of wealth from within a year, 1.5 million to 1 million. What was your expectation for 21? This was very
all right, we get your question. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. 0974-870-877, 0950-955-877. Because of time, Mr. Nakachinda, I'll allow you to tackle these two questions.
First of all, President Tungo was honest about his wealth, and he could justify. So it's not for me to start attaching emotions where was I happy and on all that. Remember, he was a career person. He never said he will not get anything from government. He was being paid allowances, and all that. And he justified his declaration. The question about the question around President HH, is that he has not declared. We haven't even gotten to the stage of scrutinizing whether what he declared is something he can justify that he owns. He has not even declared. That is the question. So if Mr. Siamusaka, or I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Siamusaka, is misunderstood the quarrel. The quarrel is that he has not even told us. He may just tell us that he only owns a farm and animals, and it collapses any other issues that you may raise. So Hussein, he was basically trying to be a typical UPND supporter, trying to compare, a mango and something else. The situation around MMD is totally different. If he knew and understood the facts, he will find that my position today is as it was in MMD. Let me tell you and tell him, my greatest personal advocacy has been that one day in this country, and hopefully it's in 2026, a former ruling party forms government. It will cure optimistic politics, where, as it was when UNIP went into oblivion, most of the UNIP members, regardless of their belief in the ideology of UNIP, ended up in MMD. Regardless of the ideology they believed, the MMD members in MMD, because unfortunately the so-called Mingarato and whatever and what happened, we ended up, some of us, in PF today. This trend must come to a stop, and the only way it can stop is that we are fighting vigorously to have a former ruling party. Obviously this time around there's a demand to cooperate with others, form government again. We are hoping that the UPND will just, at that particular point, also just relook at their failures and their policies and what they have failed to do when they're in government, and still be able. That way, we'll have a more refined, political, the political arena, in the sense that PF and this ideology will be distinct and defined. UPND and other political parties will also be distinct and defined. What is happening now is like politicians, based on the precedents which has been set, everybody is looking for greener pastures. Had MMD not gone to the extent that the colleagues who are there have taken it, I possibly have, still been advocating for that. But unfortunately, as things have turned out to be, there is an opportunity, there is a chance to have the Patriotic Front form government again, and our democracy will mature. We'll weed out naturally opportunistic politicians and politics. And I think that's one of the contributions I hope I can make in my own little way towards having a change of government in 2026.
Mr. Nakachinda, I'd like to thank you very much for coming through to the hot seat today.
God bless. Thank you very much for hosting me.
All right, there you have it. That's our show for today. We're back with another edition of the Hot Seat on Tuesday with either my colleague Hop Chishala or Chisha Mubambe. Keep it locked right here on Hot 87.7.